You'll find us airing our views here on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google, Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now joining me on Candid Frank Live is the one and only Aaron William Freeland. Hello, Aaron.
How are you today, Frank?
Good. I'm tired. I'm tired. Doing this election stuff for Osaga Beach has been real. Ugh. I think Eduardo's tired too. He was hoping to go to the exhibition, and then he realized it was raining. And how do you tell your kids? Yeah, we were going to the X.
A weather delay.
Remember those days?
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember that was. There were two things about the X that always stuck in my mind. School is happening right after it's over, and summer's over.
There's a little additional concern for some folk going to the X this year because the ride inspectors were on strike.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
so, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy, oh,
those piles of wood that they usually put underneath the rides and the sandbags to weigh down the roller coasters.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the CNE actually had to remove a ride about 2 days before the opening. Euroslide was shut down and removed on Wednesday morning. A hydraulic ram malfunction causing the ride to tilt. So
nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, we'll start with the biggest sports news. Explain it to me. Apparently there's Titanic transpirings, champions toppled, new NFL ownership. What's going on, Aaron? Tell us. I'll shut up so you can tell us.
Well, we'll start with the Titanic transpirings, specifically at the World Juniors. Team USA is no longer in the tournament. They were ousted in the quarterfinals by Czech Republic 4-2.
Otherwise known as Czechia.
Yes. Peter Hauser and Matthias Sapovaliv scored about 3 minutes apart in the second period to go up 3-1 on the United States. Thomas Suchenek, the goalie, made 28 saves. Now, the United States managed to get back to within one goal, but Czechia sealed it with an empty netter. So that's a bit of a shock right there. No surprise on the Canadian side as Canada beat Switzerland. Sweden held off Latvia, and Finland beat Germany 5-2. So most of the teams that you expected to go through have gone through now to the semis. The one glaring exception being Team USA. So one has to wonder here what this actually means for the Team USA program going forward. I know a lot of NHL players come from their developmental program, but this puts certain parts of it into question now. So.
Well, every time Canada plays Switzerland, there's always a watch on that game.
Exactly. It happens like clockwork, Frank.
It sure does. And even a clock, when it's broken, is right twice a day. Let's go to the Canadian Football League, where the Stampeders are coming to Toronto to visit the other Stampeders.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting because there's plenty of Calgary alumni and Toronto alumni on either side. You get to see a couple of friends before the game, maybe a couple for a bit afterwards. But it was pretty neat. One of the guys playing in Toronto is Corey Mace, who spent 12 years in Calgary before he joined the Argonauts in January. So he's looking forward to that a little bit.
Absolutely. So it'll be a really interesting game. And a side note, there's going to be a sideshow on the way to the game.
Exactly. These happens to be one of two games that the Toronto Argonauts are going to be playing now while the Royal Canadian Exhibition is going on, or the Canadian National Exhibition, is going on. The CNE, also known as the X. So it's going to be a bit of a zoo down there.
Yes, it will be. There will be many people. And it's always a nice picture, that TSN shows, pan to the outside of the stadium and show the people on the rides, and then that thing that you hang from in the Swiss ski thing there. What is that called?
You're talking about the gondola ride?
Yeah. So you don't know the name of it either.
The chairlift?
Alpine.
That's it.
Alpine, that's what it's called. See, Swiss, Alpine. I was close. All right. So going to the football game, get in free at the X. And right now, today, it's $19 to get in. Tomorrow, when the game is on, it'll be $25 to get in. And all you have to do, I think, is max throw in another 5 and you get a football game on the deal.
Yeah, actually, it works out rather nicely, all things
Doesn't it?
considered.
I
Yeah.
think it does. I think it does. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Lions and the Riders meeting. Last year's champs against this year's maybe close to being champs.
It's entirely possible. The last meeting between these two teams actually had the Lions won 32-17, and that was in week 8. So I believe we're going into week 11 now. So that makes things a little more interesting. The playoff picture has firmed up a little bit. So these two teams will be looking to finally maybe solidify, I guess, a little bit more their playoff position.
The next game we're talking about, the Elks and the Red Blacks, not bragging rights, more like shaming rights.
Yeah, this is one of those games where it's basically the battle of the basement. The good news for CFL fans out there is this starts in another 53 minutes and 22 seconds. So keep an eye on that. But this is the opening game of the doubleheader. Now Edmonton lost 34-23 in week 10 against the Roughies. Ottawa's coming off a bye week. The last time that the Red Blacks actually played, they lost 17-3 to the Stampeders. So that'll be interesting to watch.
There was a weird fine. Rough Riders Duke Williams had a celebration. And Elks Matthew Thomas were fined. A lot of people are disturbed by the celebratory. The celebration that Duke Williams had ended up causing him a fine. That was weird. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the players were warned, I believe, before the season started that stuff like that wouldn't be tolerated. So, jumping into the stands, especially in the opposing team's stadium, jumping into the stands is not necessarily recommended. As for Matthew Thomas, that was for a high hit on Keon Hatcher. Potentially a very dangerous hit. It didn't look good. So,
no. And when it comes to penalties like that, we only have us, the fans, to be blamed because of the behavior of fans. Last year, after the Argo game was over against the Ticats, there was a big brouhaha, and now the stuff that used to happen can't happen anymore, and it's always the few that ruin it for the many. It is what it is. Okay, so the Argos are cooking up some excitement. We talked a little bit about it, so we'll leave it at that. Is there anything else you want to add to the X?
Well, I mean, other than the fact that the Argos were actually cooking up deep fried Mars bars, so that's one of the many things that are available at the X this year. Oh, they're fantastic. Beer battered and deep fried. Oh yeah, they're really good.
Really?
They don't recommend that you eat them though, because there is the potential for a stroke because there's so much sugar in it that it draws a lot of blood away from the head and towards the stomach to deal with what's going on there.
That's okay. My head hasn't been working right for a long time, so I'll be fine.
Also, not to be confused with the ketchup and mustard ice cream that's being served up at the X this year as well.
Ketchup. Oh my God. I mean,
right?
That at least the traditions are existing with the X, where there's treats that are, I don't know, but it is what it is.
Fried butter they had one year was a treat as well.
Wow. I mean, I want to go have that. I'm surprised they don't have a Donald Trump booth with bleach available for people. Never mind. Okay, Major League Baseball. Let's talk about the Blue Jays. They've been playing terribly, but suddenly the slumping Yankees come to town, and guess what?
Yeah, the Blue Jays bats absolutely came alive on Thursday. Springer had his one theft hit. Guerrero also was a large participant in that game as well. I mean, Springer went 5 for 5. Guerrero hit a 3-run homer to cap a 5-run second inning, and they absolutely routed them 9-2. Jose Barrios actually had a decent start for a change, so that was nice to see. And this comes a day after Ross Stripling pitched an absolute gem of a game He threw 72 pitches coming back from the injured list, and the Jays actually managed to score 6 runs in support of him that game. Now, this helped the Blue Jays avoid a sweep, but also gave themselves a little bit more of a hold on a wild card spot. So this can only help make things better for them going forward. The fact that Springer was 5 for 5 and Guerrero was fantastic also really helped.
Much better if they finish ahead of everybody else in the wild card. They get to be the home team. You want that.
Yes.
Your fans on your side right there. Well, Kikuchi, he's going for a little drive across the field to the plate.
I mean, let's be honest here. He hadn't exactly performed as expected. They signed him to a 3-year, $36 million deal last winter. Unfortunately, with an ERA of 5.25 in 20 starts, he, as a starter, is one of the biggest liabilities that they currently have. Moving him back into the bullpen, I think, is a better idea. I mean, the issue that they really had as well was his ERA jumped from 5.25 to 5.71 in the 4 starts that he has since coming back from the injured list. So it's difficult. But
let's talk about the Dodgers. And what's this about a reporter breaking his arm, fracturing his ribs, and going for a ride on a Brewers home run slide?
Well, okay, so the Brewers, I don't know if you're familiar with the ballpark, but the Brewers have a slide.
Oh, yes. In center field.
That goes down it.
Yeah, so a reporter decided to go down it?
Yeah, the Brewers actually invited the LA Dodgers field reporter to take a ride on the slide, and he went all the way down the slide and came off it a little bit too hot and ended up breaking his right arm and 6 ribs when he came off the bottom of the slide. Now, he is okay. He actually gave permission for the Dodgers broadcast team to use the footage in their broadcast, and I don't think that they're going to let Vasi forget it anytime soon.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's tough. I watched this game, MLS Toronto FC, Crescito Bernardeschi. They led Toronto FC to a 2-2 draw. They should have won this game. They needed this win. This is one of the teams they need to catch, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, they pushed, but unfortunately they weren't able to do it. I thought that they would actually have had a chance in injury time, but, you know, it's difficult. I mean, New England does have actually a really decent defense, so it's not really surprising, but Toronto did push. But it was unfortunately not something they were able to make happen. Now, the good news is they're on a 5-game undefeated streak. So that is good.
Former TFC star Alejandro Pozuelo. Uh-oh, he's working against them.
Yeah, and Toronto needs a win to keep moving up the standings. They're going to be playing. They're going to be playing Miami tomorrow at 8 p.m. So yeah, Alejandro Pozuelo is going to be leading 8-seeded Inter Milan CF against Toronto, and these two teams are sitting just outside the Eastern Conference postseason picture.
So, absolutely. Let's talk about the Whitecaps. Vancouver, MLS, still in the MLS.
Yeah, goals scored twice to steer the playoff-seeking Whitecaps past the Rapids, 2-1. This is a win that Vancouver needed to help keep their playoff hopes alive. There are a lot of Canadian teams right now on the cusp of getting into the playoffs, so this definitely helps. The hope here being, of course, that if Vancouver does make it through, there could be the potential, if Toronto makes it through as well, for an all-Canadian final. So, fingers crossed.
So the 2023 World Championships, we know where the teams are going to be playing in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick?
Yeah, that was finally released today. They are actually dividing the teams up between a couple different towns. Canada, Sweden, Czechia, Germany, and Austria will be competing in Group A, with preliminary rounds taking place at the Scotiabank Centre in Halifax, where the Halifax Thunderbirds play. The U.S., Finland, Switzerland, Slovakia, and Latvia will form Group B and play at the Avenir Center in Moncton. So at least 10 preseason, 10 pre-tournament games are also going to be played in various communities throughout New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. The IIHF will have that schedule up on their website sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Stankoven scores twice for Canada.
So this was good to see. Stankoven got 2 goals where Canada doubled up the Swiss. This was the trap game that we were talking about here. He hasn't actually had a lot of scoring this time around, and it's been a little bit difficult for him. But he did have a couple of chances on Wednesday that he buried. So, I mean, it's been harder for him to score, he said, than he thought. They haven't come easy. He's had chances, but not as much as he would have liked.
Czech Republic, Czechia, we talked about them too, and how the U.S. Fell out of the tournament, sadly for them. Let's go to the National Hockey League and the Carey Price watch. Yeah, it's not good, says the GM.
No, at this point here, Hughes is saying he's had a bit of a setback. They're expecting to be without him at the start of the season and aren't necessarily sure if they're going to be able to get him back for the rest of the season at this point. They're not sure if there's actually a path for Carey to return through the rehab process. I mean, he only played 5 games last season after undergoing surgery to repair a torn meniscus. So he'd probably have to undergo another knee surgery, but at his age, 35, going to the knife for a second time just over 12 months later is something I don't necessarily think that they'd be willing to do.
I agree with you. Nazem Kadri signed 7 for 7. It's a deal with the Flames. Ooh.
There were all sorts of rumors.
Just got real interesting.
Oh, yeah. There were rumors of him going to New York. There were rumors of him going to St. Louis. There were rumors
of him coming back to Toronto. No. But I'd trade him straight up for Nylander.
You do that trade?
Oh, yeah. In a heartbeat.
Well, I mean, 7 for 6.9. I can see
that. For a winger.
Yeah, it's fair.
That's all. But I think centers are more valuable than wingers.
It's a 7-year, $49 million deal. So that's actually pretty fantastic for them.
But good for him.
The real question here is, though, I mean, who's he really going to be playing with? Because Tkachuk is gone. And Gaudreau is gone.
And Sean Monahan had to go because they signed him. And he went to Montreal, and oh my goodness.
So that's Montreal bolstering themselves a little bit by
picking up Monahan. Draft pick in the deal.
Now, the road for this is really complicated, too, because it all depends on if it's draft protected or not. And then Calgary can actually exercise the option to take a first rounder or not. So it's one of those, there's so many conditions on it, it made my head spin.
Oh, okay. What the news, though, is that Monahan's a really nice addition for Montreal.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, he's a very good pickup for them. As to whether or not he can actually really help them, hopefully they won't have as many injury issues as they did last year. So,
did you say hopefully they'll have as many injuries as
last? Won't have.
Okay. I thought your Leaf fandom was coming through there for a little bit.
I don't wish ill on them. That's not nice.
Okay, that's good for you. I appreciate that. So I'll do it for you. Maybe they'll have more injuries. No, just kidding.
Jerk.
Speaking of jerk, they're jerking on Rasmus Sandin. That contract talk is not going well. It's going, they say, nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, for a seemingly pretty straightforward negotiation, Louis Gross, his agent, said that it's not going anywhere. I don't actually say much publicly, he said, but they're just really not going anywhere. Dollars, years, and all that stuff are all coming into it. But the issue is Sandin is a little bit injury prone. And
how much
he was a valuable defender when he actually played,
and how much he probably wants isn't going to happen.
No,
because now, what he is and what he's brought to the Maple Leafs, the Leafs can't pay for potential anymore. They did that early in this group of players. They can't do it anymore. They can't pay for what you might do anymore. They can only pay for what you offer the team, and what he offers. You're 100% right. He's been injured a little too often. His size is a question considering the position that he plays. I like the kid. he's pretty strong for a guy his size. Um, but
So I'm gonna
unfortunately, they made a conscious decision between the other guy that was ranked below him when the season started last year, and I think they favor him a little more than they do Sandin.
Yeah, and the real issue here is he's only 22, so
Right.
he isn't eligible for arbitration. So holding out or signing an offer sheet is really the only leverage that he has right now to
That's
try to
right.
get what he wants. Um, and there's a bit of a logjam back there, quite frankly. Lilligren is back there as well. You've still got Hall, you've got
He's the guy
Muzzin,
that
you've got
stepped ahead of Sandin. Sandin was the guy that they're in reverse roles right now. Sandin was the guy they thought of more highly than Lilligren last year coming out of camp.
but things had a way of shaking themselves up. So
Well, it's not that and I'm going to say this, and I want to make this clear. I'm not saying that Sandin's play lowered. I'm saying it plateaued. Lilligren's play jumped up, in my opinion. That's the way I'll define it, Aaron.
no, I definitely agree with that. Lilligren leapfrogged him basically.
Basically,
So
and that's just the reality of making the team. The Leafs have the same thing with a guy whose name I forget right now, and I shouldn't. Their number one prospect, or the guy they for the last few years they've considered the number one prospect. They brought him up, given him every opportunity, first, second, third line, power play, and now his name just jumped out of my head. And he's going to
were
be
you
used.
thinking Robertson?
Yeah, and he's going to be usurped by Nyes. Nyes is their number one guy now. He's the guy they're waiting to come to the team, and that won't happen till playoff time next year. I think Robertson's going to be sliding down. If he doesn't do something special. This is the problem: is that with the Leafs, they keep drafting, and they, considering where they draft, they come up with some pretty good players, good
Yeah.
enough to compete with Robertson in as far as ice time is concerned.
Well, and the problem is Robertson snapped his leg 2 games into the season last year,
Yeah,
so it
absolutely.
sidelined him for a large chunk of it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, to his detriment, it's sort of hampered his development. So
Isn't this what we just said about Sandin?
yeah,
Isn't
it
that
is.
the thing?
It's really unfortunate, man.
Yeah, no, well, and it's not about blame, but it's about challenges, and he's being asked, and as Sandin is being asked to meet a challenge that isn't fair. I have yet to find a fair injury. Have you ever heard of an injury that's fair?
No,
They all suck.
sadly,
They all suck.
yeah,
And that's too bad, but that's what being a pro is all about, right? It's what you do. If you remember, you're probably too young to remember a guy named Cicerelli. I don't know if you remember him. Do you remember him?
I remember Dino.
Yeah.
Good player.
He didn't get drafted because he broke his leg so bad people thought he wouldn't come back, and look what the career he had. So, injuries they suck, but players have been known to rise above them. That's what Robertson has to do.
Yep, and there's definitely hope there. I just think he could use a little more season. I think he could use a little more seasoning in the AHL.
If you've just joined us, you're watching Leaf Talk at this time. And on another Leaf subject, Leafs TV went cha-cha, bye-bye, see you later, ta-ta.
Yes, finally, after a couple decades, it's finally gone the way of the dodo. I don't think they had any subscribers really by the end. It was rather niche. The programming was limited. Difficult situation.
I have Rogers. I don't know what you have. And I have that, you can pick 20 channels or 25 channels, and it was one of the ones you could pick. I stopped picking it, especially in the summer.
Yeah. Why am I paying for this stuff? But
well, there's something else you can pick up, the Trump channel, other things like that.
Yeah, so September 1st, they'll be done.
Yeah. Oh, well. You know what? It was a nice try. Oh, another bit of news that we haven't touched, that the Raptors passed the Leafs in value under the MLSE umbrella as the number one property that MLSE owns.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, did that one slip by you? Did that one slip by? Oh, I got one that slipped by Aaron. Let me write that down. I got Aaron on just one time over the past 10 years. Fantastic. I'm going to live off. I'm going to remind you of that every week now.
Well,
no,
here's the thing. They actually passed the Leafs in value back in 2019.
Oh, are they saying back in? Well, it was something they just announced, and I guess I just heard
Oh,
about it. I'm as bad as you
interesting.
are.
No,
I'm as
because I
bad.
was looking at it here. The Raptors back in 2019 were worth 1.8 billion. The Leafs were pegged at 1.45, and the Blue Jays were pegged at 1.5.
Right. So
So,
they're the most valuable team in Canada now.
which is pretty awesome. I'm glad to hear that, though.
No, well, basketball is well, when I was at Rogers, I did play-by-play of high school games, university, college, all of it, OCAA, University, Toronto, York, all them, and men's and women's, all those. And one thing that impressed me so much, I did the play-by-play for the World Basketball Championship, the only one ever held in Canada. It's where I met. It's where I met the what's his name, the guy that runs the Leafs, Larry Tannenbaum. I met him on the floor there, and that was at the U of T arena. Anyway, basketball in this city in Toronto, and I think it's probably every city, but in Toronto, especially an inner city thing, the basketball games, when we went to cover those games, the fans were phenomenal. Oh my gosh, were they the emotion within a high school basketball court, Aaron. I'm telling you, it's something that would have blew your mind because I'm not talking about professional sounding. I'm talking about emotion, real emotion, and the love of the game and the desire to support your team in high school basketball, going back to the 70s. I'm talking about when I was growing up. I saw how popular basketball was in the grassroots, and it didn't surprise me that they did well. In the NBA, and it really wasn't a surprise to me. A lot of people laughed at me when I used to do my show on Rogers back in the 80s, and I said basketball is going to be a really good sport. Don't be surprised if it does pass hockey. And people thought I was crazy at the time, and it actually happened. And the reason it happens is because of the multicultural nature of Toronto and Canada in general, and unfortunately, I say this unfortunately not against basketball, but against Canadians who go goo goo gaga over stuff that's American.
No, and you know what? Honestly, the passion for that sort of thing is absolutely unrivaled. It's fantastic to see.
Yeah, and it's a great sport for another reason as well. If you have children, it's not that expensive to say you want to play basketball. Okay,
Yeah,
you
but the
know,
most expensive part of basketball is the shoes. And even then,
absolutely,
you
they're
can get by with a
ridiculous.
pair of decent $80 kicks as opposed to 400. So,
Yeah, and besides, they buy the running shoes anyway, even if they don't play basketball. Here,
exactly.
so it
Well,
really is.
that
It
was,
an expense? Is it an expense in basketball? Is it really? I don't think so. I think they wear them anyway. Oh, anyway.
and I mean that's a lot of the thing that is a barrier for a lot of kids to get into sports is actually baseline costs.
Oh, absolutely. And
So
then, we talk, in this show, we talk a lot about the fact that the economy's been pretty tough on people, the pandemic. Generally speaking, the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and the middle class is disappearing. The middle's dropping out of the whole thing, and with that comes come decisions parents have to make, which I find it very sad, and it's very disappointing, and I wish we could do something about it. But you and I, Aaron, aren't capable of doing it. All we can do is say, "Come on, rich folks,
yeah,
pay some taxes, buy some
fork
running
it
shoes
over.
for some kids." What do you think? Huh? What do you think? I don't know. MLSC, they do some stuff for kids, basketball and stuff. Let's do more. Now that that team is worth that much. I think they. Do you remember what they paid for it? I'm trying to remember.
I
I don't
honestly
think
can't
it was
remember
much
what they
more than
paid for it,
$40 million. I don't think.
but the last time I checked, though, the Raptors were actually the 10th most valuable franchise in the NBA at $2.55 billion. So
Wow.
yeah,
Mucho dinero.
exactly.
Yeah. Hmm. Aaron, so what do you think? We should buy a basketball team or what?
Well, do
Um,
you
We'd
want
have
to
to
go
get in
with the?
we'd have to get in our time machine first.
Wow, we'd have to start with a CEBL team. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Now that we know how much the NBA team is worth, we should go back in time and buy an NBA franchise. Yeah, sure. Okay, let's talk about tennis. Good news for the boys in tennis.
Yeah, so finally, nice to see. Felix OJ Aliassime has moved on to the quarterfinals with a comeback win. Unfortunately, Denis Shapovalov got put out of the tournament, but Felix actually won 2-6, 7-6, 6-1 over Yannick Sinner at the Western and Southern Open Masters level tennis tournament. He's the seventh seed there. He hit 14 aces to Sinner's 4, and he shifted the momentum with a strong effort in the tiebreaker to win the second set. Early in their day, Denis Shapovalov actually gave up a pair of 11th game breaks in a 7-5, 7-5 loss to Daniel Medvedev in third round action. So, not entirely too disappointing. He lost to the number one guy in tennis right now. He did show flashes of brilliance during the match, particularly in the ninth game of the second set, where he fought off 4 break points and finally took a 5-4 lead. But there's unfortunately little margin for error for him, and he ended up losing out.
Let's give Shapovalov some love, man. This guy has done wonderful for Canada and Canadian tennis. I'll get it eventually. What I want to say is that this guy has carried the flag. It's been very heavy. He's been getting a little frustrated lately. He's been having some injuries. Let's give him a little love. He has made us Canadians proud of him. He has done a great job of keeping tennis high as a profile in Canada. And, if it's not for guys like Shapovalov and the women tennis players who consistently are on the news and on the sports, keeping, Tennis Canada up there in people's eyes, there wouldn't be other tennis players that are doing really well now if it wasn't for the players like Shapovalov.
Exactly. His contribution cannot be understated. He's done a phenomenal job.
And I appreciate what he's done, and I think we all do. And he wants to win more than anybody. And unfortunately, wanting to and doing it, that there's a bit of a connect that has to happen. And it hasn't happened for him yet. Has it stopped? I don't think so. I think he's still not that old. So he he just has to get a break. If he gets a break and has a good run of good health, and a great mental position, finding himself in a good place mentally, he could do something. The kid has the talent. Okay, he's not a kid; he's a little older than a kid, but still, he has the talent. And I wish him all the best. And I'm really grateful for what he's done. Chapo, you've done a lot of great stuff for Tennis Canada, and
Yep.
don't I just see him sometimes, and he seems so dejected, like the pressure of having that flag on his shoulder that he wants to win so bad for us Canadians. I just want him to know that if somebody knows him, tell him, Frank thinks you're cool and appreciates what you've done. And I know Aaron agrees with me. So,
oh yeah,
go Chapo. I sense something big happening for you real soon. Speaking of big, and speaking of the Canadian flag, 2 organizations that handle carrying the flag pretty well recently, at least, especially the ladies, the men too. Something's going on there, Aaron. What's going on with men's and women's soccer?
Right. Sorry. Well, you remember there was a point where the Canadian team didn't play a game because there were ongoing negotiations for pay. That's still ongoing. Funnily enough, it hasn't been resolved. The problem is, given the increased attention and higher stakes that come with making, the World Cup, Canadian compensation doesn't seem to have followed. They're currently trying to get a CBA for the men's national team and for the women's. So it's a very difficult thing.
The problem is, and I'm gonna risk doing this, and I know people are gonna jump on me with both feet. You might do it. You might be you who does it right here and now. The problem is to pay women. They're trying to pay men and women equally. Unfortunately, men make a lot more money outside of Canada. Forget Canada. So they've got to leave teams where they're making a heck of a lot more money. Their mindset is at a higher value than the women. Not that it should be, not that women shouldn't be equal, but the reality is men get paid more money in the world, not in Canada, because this country bends over backwards to try to treat men and women equally more than many other countries in the world. Remember, put that in that framework. It doesn't mean that women are treated fairly in sports in Canada. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying, relatively speaking, around the world, Canadian women in sports are treated better than most other countries, and that needs to be saluted. But unfortunately, the men don't get the same kind of return other countries get, by virtue of the fact that soccer at this time, and the organization that runs it, doesn't seem to be able to, I don't know, garner some money or enough money to be competitive with the other teams in the world, Aaron. As you know, every team that plays in the World Cup pays their players. The question is, when it comes to women's soccer, where does Canada rate? I think they rate in a pretty good place in the world scheme of things. But when it comes to the Canadian men, they can't compete financially. And this is what the argument's about. And you can't, the Canadian players cannot ask for money that the Canadian, the Soccer Canada doesn't have, Aaron. This is my opinion. And I'm sorry if I sound like I'm being a sexist. I apologize, but I tried framing it as best I could.
No, and I can understand that. For the most part, you would get more if you went to a different country, or if you represented a different country. You're not going to get rich making, playing soccer in Canada. That's the long and the short of it. So in order to get players to come back, you have to try to compensate them better, but that's very difficult.
Somehow. So Soccer Canada needs to work on an issue of raising money, finding money, monetizing what they do, what they have. Because now, Aaron, we don't want it to be a missed opportunity, because how do you not monetize the success that both Canadian teams have had, men and women?
Well, and here's something interesting. At the 2018 World Cup, FIFA provided $791 million to the 32 participating teams.
Right.
Of that, $400 million was paid out as prize money, ranging from $38 million for the winner, $28 million to the runner-up, $24 million for third place, and $8 million to each of the teams eliminated at the group stage. Each qualifying team also received $1.5 million to cover preparation costs, which means that every team that actually managed to get to the elimination stage was guaranteed $9.5 million alone just for their participation. That could be a huge boon to Canada. If we can make it out of the rounds and into the 8, then that would be absolutely fantastic. And especially because it's coming to North America in 2026.
Oh, sorry, Aaron. And that's how they should frame the contract, right?
Yeah. No, they definitely should.
Incentives. I don't know why. Anyway, I mean, is it really right for you and I, or for me? I'm not going to speak for you. Is it correct for me to whine on behalf of soccer players who play in the world in countries where soccer's king and they make lots of money, to suggest that? But I think, I'm not sure here, Aaron, but I think it's possible that the players who make the big money really don't care. They're thinking more about the players who don't. You know what I'm saying? I think that's what it's about. It's about being a teammate.
Well, and that's the thing, I mean, guys like Osorio and Davis, guys that have contracts in MLS and guys who have contracts with European teams aren't necessarily preoccupied with, that sort of thing. It's the lunch bucket players at the lower end of the scale that aren't as famous names that need the assistance more when it comes to this sort of thing, which is why it's important for the CSB and CBA to be put into place.
Well, hopefully they do that, right?
Exactly.
All right, the next story, the NFL, you said content and trigger warning? What?
Yes, this is concerning Deshaun Watson.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
Yeah, I'm hoping this is the last time that we have to talk about this. But as it currently stands, after review of the case, the NFL has handed down an 11-game suspension and a $5 million fine.
What was it? 6 originally?
It was 6 games.
And that was it. So they added 5. They added 5 on their face. He was punished, and then the NFL said, we don't really like the level of punishment. We would like to increase it. They had a conversation, decided on an extra 5. Deshaun Watson last time wasn't fighting it, but his attitude has changed. He's all of a sudden coming out, Aaron, very apologetic and saying things like, I'm very sorry to the women that I did this to, that I shouldn't have done. I should have been more, I'm paraphrasing. Well, I like that he's doing that, but I would have liked it better if he had meant it sooner and said it sooner. I think that would have gone further in people's minds. I don't think you or I know I'm pretty safe in thinking you don't believe that he's actually sincerely sorry. I can
Here's
assure you
here,
I don't either.
here's the thing: the written. I'm sorry, Frank, but the written statement that the Browns put out and that he
Well, that was
put out
yeah.
said, "I take accountability for the decisions I'd made." Less than 24 hours later, in front of a microphone at a press conference that wasn't scripted, he said, "Oh, I'm innocent."
Well, he
It's all
said he didn't do
trumped up.
right. Yep. And you know what? And you know what? They signed his name on the bottom of it. So why
Yeah,
isn't like if I were the league, the team should be. I mean, look,
and
if
Jimmy
I
Haslam isn't
I'm
helping their situation
not
either.
saying I have and probably will do things wrong in my life. It's just because I'm human, but I should speak for myself and shouldn't nobody should write something for me and then put my name on it, because that's an affront to the people who've been hurt by something I've done, and it's not right. So I have no pity for the guy. The guy's not going to lose any money. The fine that he's paying is a pittance compared to what he's earning, Aaron, right?
It's a fully guaranteed $230 million contract, and he's
Right.
getting $5 million taken out of it. Come on, this is nothing. This is an
No.
embarrassment. So,
Again, I'm not going to pass judgment on the guy. I'm just going to say the smell test for me doesn't work.
no, it definitely doesn't. Now they're also trying to say that he's going to be going to therapy and he deserves a second chance because he was so young when all of this happened. But that was 2 years ago when he was 24. He's now 26. I have not a lot of great hope here.
Well, I don't know, Aaron. I just hope logic and common sense in his mind. If by chance, if there's the way I see it is in the hope that I have. I went through a tough time in my life, and my mother was there for me. I think if his mother's alive, his mother should have a conversation with him and take her shoe off while she's talking to him. Formula One's Lewis Hamilton joins Broncos ownership group.
So this is something that's absolutely huge now. Um, Hamilton, who drives for Mercedes and is the winningest driver in F1 history, is the third limited partner brought aboard by the Walton Penner ownership group to become one of the owners of the Denver Broncos, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, the Walton Penner Group won the bidding for the Broncos with a $4.65 billion offer. Other people that are actually in the group there, um, yeah, I mean, it's basically a who's who. You've got the Starbucks board chair Melody Hobson, former U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, Lewis Hamilton now, the Walton family, the Penner family. The Waltons are the ones who own Walmart, so they're part of that group as well. But it's absolutely fantastic. So
Absolutely is right. Let's talk about more racing news. F1 governing body approves 2026 engine regulations.
So this, for those who aren't in the know, this is a big thing for Formula One. Um, the FIA says that they've updated the rules. They're going to be keeping the V6 engines. They're switching to 100% sustainable fuels and increase the electrical power. That's part of it. The current MGU-H element, or motor generator unit heat element, is going to be removed. What this means is for companies like Volkswagen, Porsche, Audi, it makes it a lot easier for them to get into the game, which is what they're planning on doing. So very exciting news, because this means that Porsche and Volkswagen and Audi will be coming back to F1, which means competition is only going to get stiffer, which is absolutely fantastic.
And the times are going to be, they're already in thousandths of a second, Aaron. It's going to
Yeah.
be the millionths of a second. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Kimi Raikkonen hits pause on retirement to race NASCAR.
Yeah, so everybody who follows the sport knows Kimi stepped away from F1 at the end of last season to retire, and has spent the last 8 months with his family. But he's actually been spotted at Watkins Glen, and will be racing Sunday there in a NASCAR event. So that's going to be something interesting.
And more F1 news, Albon extends deal, right?
Yeah, Albon has extended his deal to keep driving for Williams, which is good news for them. The 26-year-old says he signed a multi-year agreement, but hasn't actually said how much longer he's actually going to be there for.
In IndyCar, VK extends contract.
So the driver that was too slow for F1, Rinus VK, has actually extended his contract with Carpenter Racing, which is good news. So he's going to be there for at least the next couple of years. Again, he was unspecific as to how long it was, but a longer-term deal. He's the 2020 IndyCar Rookie of the Year, and things seem to be looking up for him. So I'm happy about that for him.
Andretti Rossi penalized for illegal winning car at Indy.
This was funny. Rossi's car failed inspection. Now, they didn't take the win away from him. They just docked him championship points and fined him. He was already outside of the top 10 anyway, so it doesn't make a difference. But he hadn't had a win in 49 races, so it felt good for him to get the win. What they did was, in order to make weight after the race, they left his water bottle in the car. And that was heavy enough to make sure that it passed.
Unbelievable. Quebec COVID-19 booster rates stay low as province launches new vaccination campaign, Aaron.
Yeah, the problem that we have here is not a lot of people are going for boosters. Only 56% of Quebecers 5 or older had received a third vaccine dose. This number apparently hasn't budged in months, but COVID is on the rise. It's visible in wastewater tailings now, which is an additional concern. The unfortunate thing is they're saying that because there wasn't a consistent and clear advisory on the boosters, most people aren't necessarily aware that they need to have them.
Yeah, it's like the Game of Thrones, right? Winter is coming.
Yes.
Weak spot and virus responsible for COVID-19 could mean new treatments.
Now, this was a peer-reviewed scientific study in Nature Communications that says that they actually found a weakness in a virus that they could potentially exploit. They found a weak spot and identified an antibody fragment that can attach to it and all other variants, including Omicron subvariants. So they found a little bit of a skeleton key to get into the virus to stop it.
Fantastic. That is good news.
Yes.
Great news. In fact, not just good news, great news. Anything that helps. Well, we have some time left over, so this is when we talk about Donald Trump. I guess you can figure I don't like the guy. So he's in a lot of trouble in a lot of places. His CFO has been, well, he agreed to go to jail and he had a plea bargain. Now he's Aaron, what do you think of this thing where he's not gonna squeal on Donald, but he's gonna squeal on the Trump organization? And for people who think that Trump's getting away with something here, he definitely is. But here's the thing. These kinds of charges, if they become convictions for the Trump organization, it can really hurt the company. I mean, almost bring it to the ground.
Yes. He was. Now, the gentleman that we're talking about here is Alan Weisselberg, was originally supposed to be tried in October on allegations he took more than $1.7 million in off-the-books compensation. Nicholas Gravante Jr. said Weisselberg had been engaged in plea negotiations to resolve the case, but didn't specify the terms of a potential deal. But the talk was that he was going to turn states for the prosecution. Now, the Manhattan DA's office has declined to comment on that.
The judge said he has to tell the truth. If he doesn't tell the truth, he could end up in jail for as much as 15 years.
Yeah. And he's 75. So, unless he wants to be in there until he's 90 and can only eat soft food, it's in his best interest to tell the truth.
Now let's keep this in mind as well. He can plead the fifth on any new charges. He doesn't have to implicate himself. He still has that right where he can plead the fifth, but he can't plead the fifth on behalf of Donald Trump. That's the difference.
Yes.
So I'm telling you, this is the stuff that's going on there, Aaron. In politics, I'm covering politics here at home, and it's getting a little. The example that's going on in the U.S. is permeating here in Canada, where there are actually people threatening politicians in this country who feel it's okay to do that. And the only reason that's the case, Aaron, is that nobody's being made accountable for that kind of behavior. You and I know we're on the same page with this one. So I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but at the end of the day, how do you feel about people who threaten other people who are trying to run for politics and or operate, the political system, be a part of the functioning political system? The peons I'm talking about as well, and I'm sorry I'm calling them peons, but
There is something called the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Now, if you are actively threatening individuals or uttering threats, that is something that is punishable by law. It is recommended that you not do that sort of thing. Those of you that think it's okay to threaten other individuals, no, not cool, bud. That's not the way it works. You're not.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You say in decent society, you don't do that sort of thing.
I'm
You may
waiting.
think. Hmm?
I'm waiting for. Sorry, Aaron. I'm waiting for legislation, for rules, for laws that understand that when somebody broadcasts someone's name and attaches this person is the enemy, there should be some automatic reaction by the authorities to shut that person down, because that we have rules where you can't discriminate against people. You can't do things that against people, whether it's of color, whether it's of race, whatever it is, right? And I think for individuals who are being attacked because people know that if they broadcast a name, that name being broadcast puts them in harm's way, it's time for legislation to be passed to put those people on notice, and
Mm-hmm.
if they persist, in jail, because this has got to stop. This is not right. This is not right. Nobody should fear for doing their job. Nobody.
No, and it's very true, and that's the thing, right? A lot of them are saying, "Well, you're censoring me. That's not free speech." And the point I'd like to bring home is that you do have the ability to express yourself freely. However, that's not consequence free, and that's the thing that too many people tend to forget. You have freedom of expression, not freedom from consequence.
We already know that you can't do that. You can't call people names. You can't do that. You just can't. And you cannot cause people like, well, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. It's just that simple. You can't say something that you know is going to cause a reaction that will hurt people. You can't do that. And that's the bottom line for me. No one should have the right to say stuff knowing full well that people out there who are a little bit, in my opinion, ready to do something illegal, thinking that they're getting permission to do it. We got to end that. That's got to stop. We can't live in that kind of world. I sure hope we don't live in that kind of world, Aaron.
We need a more polite society is basically what it boils down to.
Politeness is even further away from what I'm talking about. I'm talking about civility. I'm talking about what we're seeing. We're seeing, because news is so rampant, right? We see everything. There was a video I saw of a guy going into a subway station in New York and punched some guy unconscious. I mean, for no reason. The guy was just standing there. That's all he was doing, is waiting for a subway. That guy's got to spend a lot of time in jail. A lot of time in jail. But, you know, sometimes criminals get a break because we're compassionate, Aaron. But I'm saying we've got to also have compassion for victims as well.
No, I can certainly appreciate that, Frank.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Hey, Aaron, this was fun.
Thanks a lot, Frank.
As always, Aaron William Freeland. There he is, the brains of the operation. Thank goodness, because mine are tired. I'm Frank Stanisci for Aaron William Freeland. This has been Candid Frank Live. And you know what? I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for watching, Aaron and I. You know, this show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. I don't know if you heard. And for this show and shows like this, you can tune in to Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. I think my eyes just glossed over. Until next time.